Here is interested in running for Chris Collins' seat in the 27th Congressional District now that Collins says he will not run for re-election after all. Good evening once again. Tonight, we know local Republican leaders will meet in Batavia tomorrow to discuss the next steps in this race, a race many in the GOP thought they had lucked up with Collins in the driver's seat just a week ago.
Well, now there are a lot of names, a long list, also a lot of questions and a good amount of confusion as well. That's why 7 Eyewitness News is getting some answers tonight on what it will take to remove Collins' name from the ballot in November. Also, how a replacement for the congressman will be picked and what happens to all that campaign cash that the congressman already has raised. Here's 7 Eyewitness News reporter Ed Riley.
At this point in time, his name remains on the ballot, and there's no event at this point that has taken Congressman Collins' name off the ballot.
Even if Congressman Chris Collins resigned today, his name would still appear on the November general election ballot.
The time period by which he could voluntarily say, I no longer want to run and be a candidate, has long expired.
Republican Erie County Board of Elections Commissioner Ralph Moore said Collins can only be removed from the ballot because of death, disqualification, or nomination for another office. The only nominations possible are for state Supreme Court.
And Congressman Collins cannot avail himself of that ability because he's not an attorney.
Some wonder if Chris Collins could be disqualified if he moved his residency outside the 27th Congressional District. Maybe, said Ralph Moore, but a previous lawsuit ruling makes that questionable.
Involving this exact same congressional district a number of years ago, and that was held to be not a valid excuse to be off the ballot.
If Collins does get disqualified, there will be no primary for his replacement on the ballot.
So the Independents, Conservative, and Republican parties will get together and make that selection.
Those interested could run a write-in campaign.
And we're going to have to hand count each one of those ballots.
Many replacement names mentioned are people who are up for re-election to state positions, but they cannot run for two offices at the same time. Votes cast for Collins in November will go to the congressman, and if he wins, Collins could then resign in January 2019.
A special election would be called just in the same manner as when Congressman Chris Lee had resigned.
If there is going to be any changes to the November election, they have to be done soon because military and absentee ballots will begin being mailed out starting the third week of September. In Buffalo, Ed Riley, 7 Eyewitness News.
Now, what happens to Congressman Collins' campaign war chest, all the money he raised before dropping out of the race? As I-Team Chief Investigator Charlie Speck tells us, some donors may not be getting their money back.
Chris Collins' career in Congress is over, but that doesn't mean that all the money he raised simply goes away. Collins' name has already been scrubbed from the federal elections website. But last week, as Collins was charged with insider trading, we obtained a spreadsheet with all donations to Collins' campaign. In all, Collins has a war chest of $1.7 million. $1.5 million of that comes from his campaign donors, and another $234,000 from a political action committee. Collins could return that money to supporters, but political observers say that rarely happens. He is barred from using it for personal expenses, things like a house or a car, but could support his successor in that office, although individual donations are capped at $2,700 in federal elections. The issue of legal fees is also up in the air. The Buffalo News reported that Collins has already used some campaign funds for legal fees earlier this year, but his lawyers say he's paying for the defense in his federal case with his own money. For the I-Team, Charlie Speck, 7 Eyewitness News.
We are following this story from every angle, and we have much more online. You'll find the latest on the race for the 27th District and the insider trading investigation involving Chris Collins, all available on WKBW.com and the WKBW app.
Also tonight.